Let's see how we would discuss this requirement using example mapping. Example mapping is a technique invented by Matt Wynne, one of the Cucumber developers. It's a simple approach. We have conversations about stories, and we discuss concrete examples of how these stories play out. Examples, as we've seen, are a great way to explore a problem domain, and they're a great starting point for our automated acceptance tests as well. But when we discuss a story, we also talk about other things. In particular, we talk about business rules that help us understand the context behind the examples. And we often come up with questions that nobody in the session can answer, or assumptions that we need to make to move forward. These are the 4 elements of example mapping: stories, examples, rules, and questions. In example mapping, we use coloured index cards to represent these concepts. We start with a yellow card, which represents a story. A refund story might look like this. As a coffee lover whose plans have changed at the last moment, I want to be able to cancel my order so that I don't pay for a coffee that I don't drink. We put the story at the top of the board. The BA will usually have some ideas about high-level acceptance criteria for the story. We write these ideas or acceptance criteria on blue cards. They aren't in given when then form. You can see here they're actually more like one-liner business rules. Orders cancelled less than 5 minutes before pickup time incur a $1 fee. Or we might have another rule about order preparation. Orders should appear in the Prepare Now list when the client is 4 minutes away. We lay the blue rules out across the board underneath the story card. For each rule, we try and find concrete examples to illustrate it. Example mapping is a breadth-first approach, which means that we are after quantity more than detail. So the team tries to come up with as many examples as possible and then curates them as they go onto the board. We aren't after exhaustive examples here either. The examples expressed are very simple. We don't express them in the Cucumber given when then format. We just want the minimum amount of information that will allow everyone to remember what we were talking about. Matt Wynne uses a convention called the Friends episode notation. If you've ever seen the TV series Friends, you may have noticed they're all named quite particularly. They have titles like the one where Chandler crosses the line or the one where Ross moves in. This simple one-line notation is enough for most cases. So we could say the one where Sarah has to cancel at the last minute. Or the one where Sarah orders her coffee when she's 2 minutes from the stop. Or the one where Jack has an automatic order scheduled each morning. Sometimes we might add a little bit more detail if the outcome isn't immediately obvious from the example. For instance, we might want to flesh out the fact that a scheduled order appears in the to-do list 10 minutes before its scheduled pickup time. We could say something like this. Jack has a cappuccino scheduled for 8 a.m, so it appears in the to-do list at 7:50 a.m. And sometimes we discover new rules that we hadn't initially thought of. For example, the rule about scheduled orders. We hadn't thought about that before. Scheduled orders should appear in the queue 10 minutes before pickup time. Let's put that up the top. So you can see here this leads us to refactor our example map, and we can have several rules with examples underneath the rules. Sometimes we come across things that we don't know. This might be a business rule that we need to ask the stakeholders about, or it might mean that we need to do some research. For example, we might ask something like, how does a fee work if the customer pays using his loyalty points? This is a question, and we record questions as pink cards. Pink cards are a good indicator of uncertainty. If there are a lot of pink cards on your board, it may mean that you aren't quite ready to develop that feature yet. So that's example mapping. a simple, lightweight, breadth-first approach that helps you get a quite good idea of the rules and examples you need to understand when you implement your story.